So this is the Woojer Vest 3, and it's a haptic vest actually designed to be used for a wide variety of different kinds of entertainments, from movies to music consumption to gaming in general, but also for virtual reality gaming as well. And of course that's the part that I'm going to be focusing on in this video. It consists of 6 pretty high powered transducers, 2 in the front, 2 in the back and 2 in the side as well. And since receiving this review unit a couple of weeks ago, I've been trying it out in quite a few different VR games, and I just wanted to give a quick review actually on this. So that's what I'm going to be getting into in this video, so let's get into it.
Immersed robot.
So the first thing you'll notice when you get this out of the box is that it feels premium. It feels like a pretty high quality product. Everything is quite rigid, but also pretty comfortable to wear, I would say as well. I've worn this for quite a while in various different kinds of VR games, from seated to standing games as well, and I've never had an issue with comfort at all. But the actual material, the quality of the vest itself, you know, there's no arguing that this is a premium product, and the price does reflect that. And of course I'll get onto that towards the end of this review as well. But first off, that is the thing that is going to jump out at you. You know this is going to be a pretty high quality product based on just how it feels, and it really is that. The setup of the vest itself is also pretty straightforward, at least for my use case. So generally I've been using this with PC VR gaming, but you can also do it, you know, directly with the Quest 2 if you want to do it that way, or the upcoming Quest 3 as well. So it works off of having just a direct input either through Bluetooth or by 3.5mm jack, both in and out. And so you get an audio input feed into this vest either via your PC or through the Quest 2, and then you also get an output feed either through Bluetooth or 3.5mm jack output as well to some headphones. And this just sort of converts that noise, the sound of the game that you're playing, into some kind of haptic feedback that you can feel. And of course that can have varying results basically, because it is based on the noise itself, the sound of the game that you're playing. And for certain games it's really well suited, but I'll get into that in a second. So setup itself is pretty straightforward. If you wanted to use it for music, I don't want to concentrate too much on the other aspects of this vest. I do want to keep it into the virtual reality aspects. But if you wanted to pair this with a phone, there is an app that you can download as well, play your music, and then you get some kind of sort of haptic vibration, the bass sensation while wearing this vest as well. So it's got those kinds of applications. I didn't really dive into the mobile app too much. I really did focus on either computer PC based applications or directly with the Quest 2 as well. Now the audio input feed, it does recommend that you have in the input, you maximize the volume of the input source in order to maximize the haptic feedback. It then recommends that you control the volume to the output to your headphones through the audio volume on here, and you've also got separate controls here for the haptic sensation as well. So the amount of feedback that you'll receive through the vibrations on this vest can also be controlled independently as well. So one of the first things I went into is Elite Dangerous with this vest while wearing it, and the way I set that up is I actually, because I use Steam VR, I can mirror the audio. So I had the audio coming out through the Pimax Crystal headphones, but then in Steam VR I just mirrored the audio to an output jack on my PC and then connected that to the 3.5mm jack here, and then that would sort of complement the sound that I was getting through haptic feedback as well. And the haptic feedback was really quite strong in this as well, so you can adjust it, you can change it how much you want. And what I would advise anybody thinking about getting this is don't overdo it. Don't increase the haptic feedback to the point where it is really overwhelming. I think it works best actually, having used it for a couple of weeks now actually, it's better to have it almost like a subtle kind of feedback. I feel like you can sell the experience a little bit more with that. And that's what I did with Elite Dangerous. It was just about right when I went in there. And when you get close to a star and you've got the slow rumble, the gradual rumble of the star as you get close to it, as you're moving the ship around, that works really well with this. And also you've got more directly obvious kind of haptic feedback through the sound in something like Elite Dangerous. So if you go into a new system and you do the discovery scanner, you've got that big loud sound that reverberates through the cockpit, and of course if you're wearing this then you'll get that sensation through the haptic feedback in this as well. And it does add something, I can't deny it, definitely adds something to that. Also, approaching a planet as you descend through the atmosphere in Elite Dangerous, you'll notice the gradual feedback through that as well. And really really, I mean, the point that I actually missed off at the beginning of this, it is just a vibrating vest. It's a haptic vest. So once again, in every video I've mentioned on this, I'm not trying to oversell anything that this vest can and can't do. It is a vibrating vest, but when used in conjunction with immersive experiences, it can help to sell that experience. And I don't want to downplay that side of it, but also I don't want to upplay the side that this is nothing more than 6 transducers in a vest. That is what it is trying to do, and that's really what you're going to be expecting to purchase with this as well. So I don't want to oversell it, but also I don't want to undersell the experience that just that simple sort of application to this can actually add to immersive experiences as well. And one of the other things that I first went into with the Woojer Vest 3 was No Man's Sky, which again, in some very similar kind of ways to Elite Dangerous, it actually excelled in certain areas, like approaching a planet, as you're entering the atmosphere, you've got that haptic feedback of the sound and the vibration of the rumble as the ship is entering the atmosphere. It definitely adds something, and that was one of the aspects that first hit me with this as well, like trying Elite Dangerous, No Man's Sky, those kind of subtle applications where initially you just think, okay, I'm getting this kind of vibration as I'm entering in, and you're trying to analyze it a little bit more as well. When you first use it, I feel like I was trying to think, okay, is this really adding to the experience? And it's only actually after a while of playing both of these that I fell into the illusion, I suppose that's what it comes down to. You sort of fall into this illusion of just allowing it to play into the overall immersive sensation of playing these games. That's really what it comes down to. And after a while, you can forget you're wearing a vest and you're just enjoying the game, and that's when it really comes into its own, I would say. But just very quickly, some of the other games that I played as well, they are Space Pirate Trainer. I played that quite a bit, actually. That was a pretty good experience in this, as well as Half-Life Alyx. And one of the things that stuck out to me with that while wearing this vest was just that beginning section where you've got those big sort of robotic walker things that are going around the city. Apologies, I'm not like a Half-Life Alyx expert or anything like that, although I have played through it twice. But those big like mechanical walkers, as you go out of the building and you've got this huge vibration of the walker putting its foot down right on the balcony where you are, you get that sensation, and it does add something. It definitely adds something to the overall immersion that you're feeling in that time. It definitely adds something. Briefly went into Beat Saber as well, just on my Quest 2 this was, not on my PC, so I connected the Woojer Vest to the 3.5mm out from the Quest 2 into the vest, then out from the vest into some sort of separate headphones which I use for Beat Saber. And I tried that briefly. I'm not a huge fan of Beat Saber. It's okay, it's a rhythm game, fine, and yeah, I think it adds to an experience. I think if you're really into that game, I think it could be the kind of thing that would add to that experience. But honestly, it's not really my kind of game, and you know, it's not something that I really wanted to play that much while wearing this vest anyway. I thought it was an obvious one to try, so that's why I did it, really. And of course, some of the other things that I went into races, I went into Project Cars 2 while wearing this, and in spite of not being like a huge sim racer or anything like that, I enjoy them enough that I go into them pretty regularly, honestly, and it definitely added something again. So you've got this sensation of the engine noise, the rumble of the road and stuff like that, and it adds overall to that experience. And I was almost going to skip ahead to something I wanted to say there actually about this in comparison to some other like chair transducers and stuff. But before I get onto that, I want to mention some of the differences between the Woojer Vest and something like the B-Haptics Vest, for example. Now, the B-Haptics has 40 points. The B-Haptics X40, I should say, has 40 points of haptic feedback. So you have 20 on the front of your chest and then 20 on the back as well. And because of this, they're made up of sort of smaller motors. Each of these sort of points of haptic feedback are smaller, and they don't offer individually as much as, of course, like the large transducers on the Woojer Vest 3. But by having the more points of haptic feedback and direct integration with software, which is another thing with the B-Haptics, it does have to have some kind of direct integration with software in order to get the maximum benefit of that vest. Then it can provide certain things that the Woojer can't do. So, for example, in a shooter, you'll be able to sense the direction that you're being shot in, because you'll get that sensation either on the chest, the upper left chest, or the lower right back. You know, you'll know the direction that you're being shot, and so that can provide extra feedback and provide extra functionality, I suppose, for some people, depending on the type of game that they are playing. And also the other thing with the bHaptics is I believe you can use it in sound mode as well. So you don't need any sort of software integration with individual games, any direct compatibility with games necessarily. It can work in sound mode in a similar way to the Woojer. So it will just work off the sound of the game and then provide haptic feedback like that. The advantage of the Woojer, in my opinion, and I've not tried a bHaptics, and I'm not really trying to put these directly up against each other in that sense, but the advantage of a Woojer is simply because these transducers are quite large and quite powerful. So getting the immersion from something like a racer or Microsoft Flight Simulator or Elite Dangerous, where you've got this low rumble of the natural sort of atmospheric sound effects that the game is offering, I believe that the Woojer would offer an overall better experience in those. I've not tried the bHaptics once again, so, you know, I'll reserve judgment on that a little bit, but that was one of the reasons I was initially interested in the Woojer over that vest. I'm not really into playing first-person shooters, competitive shooters, multiplayer and stuff like that, so I wanted something that would increase the immersion for Elite Dangerous primarily, honestly, and that's why I decided to go for the Woojer. And I do think it fulfills that use case in a really nice way, and by having that adjustment of the haptic feedback you're getting, you can get it to the level where it's subtle enough that you almost forget you're wearing a vest, but you do get this overall level of immersion. And I would say that the Woojer and the bHaptics, although classed as haptic vests, are doing slightly different things in a slightly different way for different use cases. So, you know, I'll reserve judgment on the bHaptics, and I'll be interested to try something like that as well sometime, to really directly compare how they operate in the kinds of games and experiences that I'm most interested in. The other aspect of the Woojer Vest 3 is that you could almost have this direct comparison to something like the chair transducers. So one of the most famous ones is the ButtKicker, which is a transducer that fits directly onto your chair and simulates sort of vibrations and haptic feedback through your chair, depending on the type of game you're playing. Again, it generally works directly through the sound, although you can download software, sim-based software, which will use the telemetry from certain pieces of software in order to simulate road noise if you're playing a racer, and those kinds of things, you know, the rumble of the road that you're playing with. And whether that can be used with the Woojer or not, I assume it can be. I haven't dived into that because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to pay out for some sim-based software just to try that specific feature. But because both things are based on sound, I don't see any reason why you couldn't also use that kind of stuff with the Woojer Vest as well as something like the ButtKicker. But some of the comments that I've received on my previous Woojer videos was based around how it would compare to the ButtKicker and similar kind of chair transducers as well. Because I suppose if you're playing a racing game, and this is something I've been thinking about over the past couple of weeks actually, if you're playing a racing game or Microsoft Flight Simulator, having the vibration coming directly through the chair rather than having sort of these transducers that are connected directly to your body and sort of vibrating on your torso, the vibration in the chair might feel a little bit more immersive. Now, I've not tried a ButtKicker or any kind of chair transducer before, so I can't really speak to that directly, but it does make me think maybe that would be a good alternative to this in certain situations. But regardless of all of that, and in spite of all the enjoyment that I've had with the Woojer Vest in playing it in a variety of different experiences and games, we need to really talk about the price of this vest. Now, I mentioned at the top of this video it feels premium, and it genuinely does. There's absolutely no argument for me from the packaging of the box, from the way it feels to the way it responds and works. It is absolutely a premium device, and of course the price reflects that. So over here in the UK it is £610 for the Woojer Vest 3, and in the US it is $599. So it's not a cheap device, and that's the thing really. I suppose I mentioned this on a podcast as well, the Recenter podcast that I do, when I was talking about the Woojer Vest. To me, I honestly, personally wouldn't purchase this vest for that price. I feel like it's just not adding enough to the VR experience exclusively for that use case for me to pick it up for that price. Now, for people that are interested in movies and just using it for music consumption, stuff like that in general, because there are plenty of people that pick up this vest and don't use it for VR at all, or even use it for gaming. They use it for entertainment, movies. If you've got a home theater, or if you've got you want to simulate a home theater in a better way, then this can provide that feedback with the bass and, the sound and stuff. And equally with music, it can definitely add a little bit to that as well. But speaking purely for the VR gaming side of this, I feel like I wouldn't pick one up for that price. That's really what I'm saying. Now, if this was, a few £100 cheaper, it might be something I would consider. The thing is, with this, there's no denying that this is premium, and it certainly adds to the VR experience overall. I've used it enough to know that that is certainly the case, but it's really down to the individual whether they have the disposable income in order to put it towards that, getting that extra little bit of immersion into a VR use case. Now, to me, I don't have that level of disposable income to spend that amount of money just to add that level of immersion. But some people do. So I don't want to comment on that side of things too much, other than to say it certainly adds to that level of VR immersion, but that is not enough for me to spend that much just for that use case, unfortunately. So that's where I fall on it. But I'm not saying it's a bad product. I'm not saying it's, in most use cases, actually not worth that amount of money if you're going to get the benefit that it offers in a wide variety of different kind of entertainment use cases. But for me, for VR gaming, which is where I'm focused, it's not for me, unfortunately. So just in conclusion, and I did go over a few of my points of this section in the previous pricing section, actually, but I would say that this offers undoubtedly an extra level of immersion if you want that aspect in VR, and especially for certain titles. I think Races and Microsoft Flight Simulator, the ones that I've mentioned really, Elite Dangerous, and actually No Man's Sky was really very good with this vest as well. So those are the kinds of things that I would recommend it for. One thing I've not mentioned so far is the friction. So of course you've got a layer of friction there. You've got to put on your headset, your VR headset, load up the game. You've got to add this vest in there as well. You've got to either connect it through 3.5mm jack or Bluetooth. And these are all extra steps. But these are extra steps that some people will make to get that extra level of immersion. And I find myself actually doing that in No Man's Sky. If I'm playing that in my office where I am now on my PC, then there is no doubt I'm putting the Woojer Vest 3 on as well, because it does add something to the experience. And I feel like that stepping through the process of adding that extra layer of friction is fine for me. For if I know I'm going to spend an hour or 2 hours in VR at a time, then I'm willing to take those extra couple of minutes just to set up the Woojer Vest as well. But it's something that you need to consider, and it is an extra layer of friction as well. So you need to understand that perhaps that extra layer of friction might affect your retention level of actually using the device as well. Just something to consider, but not necessarily something that I think will make all the difference. And I said in my first video with the Woojer Vest 3 actually that although it adds to the level of immersion and it adds to the overall experience of playing certain games in VR, it's not transformative, and I'll stand by that on this one as well. I would say that it doesn't transform the VR experience, but it certainly adds to the VR experience in terms of immersion. If you can sell yourself, and that's the thing, I find that when I've been in a game for long enough that once again I forget that I'm wearing the vest and I'm just sort of experiencing the game, and I've got to that point where I'm just in the flow of the game. It does add a level of immersion. It's almost like, because when I was originally playing No Man's Sky, the haptic feedback was so strong, I was just concentrating on the fact that I was wearing this vest and I needed to turn it down. But it's almost like you have this level of this suspension of disbelief. You have to sort of fall down that hole and just really allow it to do what it's trying to do. And you can't necessarily consciously do that, but if you just stick with the game for an hour, I think you'll notice that it does add something that you don't necessarily need to keep track of constantly. You don't constantly need to think, oh wow, I'm getting that level, that extra bit of immersion because I'm wearing this vest. It all comes together to create that kind of illusion, I suppose. And I will say that certain games are difficult to go back to once you've tried it with this. So No Man's Sky is one of them. I do find myself playing No Man's Sky with this vest more often than not now, and it's not always going to be the case, because if I want to play it wirelessly on my Quest 2, then I'll sit in my house, I'm connected to the router, and I won't necessarily want to go through the hoops to put the vest on. But if I'm here in my office, it's really not that much of an effort to wear the Woojer Vest as well while I'm playing No Man's Sky. And so that's probably how I'm going to play it in here for, the foreseeable future. We'll see how long it lasts, I suppose. But having said all that, it is too expensive for me, just for the VR use case. I'm not saying it's a bad product at all. I think it actually is a very good, high quality product, but it's just too expensive for me just to add that level of immersion. But if you do have that disposable income where you just want to add that extra little bit, then it could be a great device to add into your overall sort of VR setup, I would say. So that's pretty much it, really. That's all I've got to say on the Woojer Vest 3. And actually, I'm sweating. It's really hot here in my office today, so I've tried to do this, but not miss anything out. So apologies if you can see the sweat on my forehead as I'm doing this. But yeah, it's cooling down over here in the UK now, so I should be okay to record some more stuff. But anyway, that's it. The Woojer Vest 3, a great product without a doubt, just a little bit too expensive for me. But thank you very much for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.